This video is going to show you how to construct a frequency polygon on Excel. A frequency polygon is an adequate substitute for histogram, which is what we should really be using when we're trying to display continuous data like we have here. We've got to do some steps before we can even start constructing the graph, because essentially the graph is going to end up where we have the values along the bottom axis, the x-axis, would be the middle of each of the groups that we've got. So here we'd have less than 40 pence, we would be plotting that on the bottom at 20, and then on the side or the y-axis we need to calculate a value known as a frequency density, and that's based on the actual frequency of the group divided by how wide that group is. So we need to start off by constructing quite a lot of information. So we need at least 3 columns. I'm just going to start off by actually calculating the midpoint. When I say calculating, I'm actually going to work this out in my head using mental arithmetic. So between 0 and 40, the middle of that group would be 20. I've then got the middle of 45, 55, 70, 90, 110, 130, and the last one would be 170 in the middle. So I've got that set of information. I'm now also going to again, just using mental arithmetic, work out how wide the column is. So it's literally, in this case, that one's 40 wide, the next one would be 10 and 10, then the next few are 20 wide, so we've got 20, 20, 20 and 20, and the last one is a lot wider at 60. So this third column is going to be a calculation, which is known as the frequency density, and that's quite simple because it's just based on taking the frequency, so for that first category we've got 4, and dividing it by how wide the column is. So it covers 40 pence, so we just divide it by the 40, and that gives us a value of 0.1. Because that same pattern is going to be produced for all of them, I'm just going to copy that formula down, and it gives me these various values which seem a bit meaningless, but it's only for the purpose of graphical representation anyway here. So basically our graph is going to consist of this set of values along the x-axis and that set of values along the y-axis, and I'm just going to colour them just so that you can see them a bit more clearly, just by making them red text. Just missed one off there, so if I just do that again, okay, and I'll take that one and make that red text as well, okay, just so that you can see them a bit more clearly. Now when you're constructing a graph, usually you when you're learning Excel for the first time, a lot of people assume that the values that you need to put on a graph are going to be in a block next to each other, and these ones aren't. But don't worry about that too much, and don't worry too much about labels and things like that, because my advice would be concentrate on the numbers first and then add all the labels in a little bit later on. So I'm going to start off first of all by literally just highlighting all the values that I would want to go along the x-axis. And just a little point to remember here is that Excel is very fussy, and it really would want you to make sure that any values that are going to go along the x-axis are in a column before anything that you would plot on the y-axis. So these are in the right position, so we're okay there. To then tell it what we also want to plot that against, we use the control key on the keyboard and keep that pressed down while we highlight our second block. So we've just taken the numbers, and now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use those and construct a graph. That's done from the menu at the top, so I'm going to use the Insert tab, and you can see that we've got a variety of graphs here that we can choose from. The best graph to select in this case is actually known as a scatter diagram, but we're going to choose one with lines on. Now it doesn't really matter whether you choose one which is curved or whether it's like straight lines, that's personal preference. I'm just going to choose this one with the straight lines for the purpose of this demonstration, and you can see immediately it's given us a graph to start working on. Because it's kind of like plopped it in the middle of the screen, I'm going to move it just out to the side just so you can see me amend it, I'm actually also going to make it a little bit bigger just for you to be able to see what's happening next. Now at the moment, right, it's a graph, but it's not very meaningful. So what I'm actually going to do now is on this section here, it gives us all sorts of alternatives for what layout we might want to see. Well, a good graph should always have a title, which is at the top here, and then each axis should also have a label. And then if you've got more than one set of data, you normally put what would be known as a key on. Well, here we've only got one set, but I'm just going to choose that option to start off with, and I can adjust it later. And then all I then now have to do is, because it's given me the areas, I'm just going to click on where it says chart title, and then in there I will literally type in what I want for my title. So this, I'm taking the title that was given on the table there, so I'm saying the stock price for this made up company, okay, over a sample of 50 days. Bear with me while I do that. Okay, so we have that as a title. Along the bottom, that is actually the stock price, so I'm actually going to type in stock price as a title. And that will appear on the graph. Then on the side, I'm actually saying what it is, and that value is the frequency density. Okay, I'm going to change my title a little bit, because often what we're actually doing on this graph was just showing how the stock price is being distributed over a period of time. So I'm actually going to put that this is, you could say it's a frequency polygon or whatever, but here I'm just going to say the distribution of stock prices. Okay, can make it how you wish. Now, as mentioned before, we've got like a key here. Now, if you've got one set of data, you don't really need a key because the title is telling you what it is. So if you want to get rid of that, you just click on it and then press delete, and then you've got your final graph. Okay, so that's the end of the demo for a frequency polygon.